Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today. Feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat, drop your name and where you're joining us from today. Good afternoon and welcome to the season finale of the African American Leadership Forum's GRIT webinar series. My name is Adora Land-Tolfree and I'm the Director of Leadership Development here at ALF. I'm excited to kick off today's session, In the Mirror, Facing Imposter Syndrome Head On. General housekeeping before we get started. Please keep your microphone muted when you're not speaking and feel free to ask questions or comments by putting them in the chat. Before we start our session, I would like to share a labor acknowledgement with you. We acknowledge that much of what we know of this country today, including its culture, economic growth and development throughout history and across time, has been made possible by the labor of enslaved Africans and their descendants who suffered the horror of the transatlantic trafficking of their people, chattel slavery, and Jim Crow. We are indebted to their labor and their sacrifice and must acknowledge the tremors of that violence throughout the generations and the resulting impact that can be felt and witnessed today. The African American Leadership Forum is an organization working to improve the lives of African Americans in Minnesota by building a cross-sector network of leaders and institutions that convenes, collaborates, and champions solutions. GRIT is a comprehensive Black-centered leadership development training program. These trainings will uplift our unique experiences to navigate professional and community leadership by offering you the essential tools to grow, reflect, inspire, and transform your leadership journey. And today, I am delighted to introduce our speaker, Svenkeson. As CEO of NEOO Partners, D'Angelo's provides the executive level guidance of NEOO's vision through strategic partnerships, market expansion, and client services. He is the strategic voice of the enterprise, ensuring that the workplace culture creates positive benefits for clients and the team. In his work, D'Angelo's leverages over 15 years of industry experience in real estate development, finance, long-range planning, and client advisory. He draws on nearly $500 million of project leadership experience to shepherd a team of over 20 professionals with deep knowledge on human-centered approaches to resilient community development. Affectionately known at NEOO as the chief risk taker, D'Angelo's has been able to grow the scrappy two-person operation into a market leader as a value-based alternative to traditional service providers. D'Angelo's has a master's degree in urban and regional planning from Jackson State University and a planning and community development degree from St. Cloud State University. Welcome, D'Angelo's.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Adora, for that introduction. I cannot see my face, and so there we go. Hey, everyone, how's it going? I see a couple of faces. I am going to start sharing my screen here and get through some presentation materials before. Okay, now there we go. Let's try it again. All right, everyone able to see? Awesome, amazing. So, Adora, really thank you for that. As you can tell, like I like to let my hair get a little long on that picture, but I still put on a suit when appropriate. And, you know, some days are for sweaters and crew necks. And so I want to deliver a lot of range here for today's conversation. As Adora said, the chief risk taker here at NEOO, started the organization in December of 2018, really with a focus on serving our community. And this topic and conversation today is not something that's just intellectual. It's something that's very personal for me. And the tools and solutions that I'm going to talk about are ones that I practice, always not perfectly, but these are the ones that have gotten me through the most challenging times with the topic of imposter syndrome. And so as Adora gave you the introduction that really reflected on the business side of who I am, we like to think about the fullness of people's humanity at NEOO. And so not just who I am at work, but who I am in my family, who I am in community, and who I am to my friends and their support. So husband, father, son, nephew, deacon at my local church, but someone who's been a confidant to people who are struggling with this topic, and as well as a mentor to those in community. I like to use the words reclaimer for those who feel like they haven't invested their time the best, but have reclaimed their time to put it in areas that they believe actually benefit where they're going. I am also not a psychologist or mental health professional. I am very much a real estate and economic development professional, but I am also someone who has studied this because it has been an issue for me all through education and academia. So diving in, I'm going to move the chat that is on my screen so I don't get distracted. There we go. Defining imposter syndrome, right? This is not a DSM-5 mental illness. It is not registered in that way, but it is something that psychologists and mental health professionals acknowledge is an active syndrome or effect that we are seeing in people who tend to be inconsistent in their belief about their abilities, so much so that it's a persistent belief that your ability to do something at a high level is undermined because you don't believe you're actually legitimate at what you do. You believe that in some respects that there's some fraudulence, or you have cheated people, or you're illegitimate in your own abilities, and somehow you have been elevated falsely. Now, there's a lot of reasons why this is true and why this is a problem in particularly communities of color that I want to make sure I highlight before we get to any kind of conversation around solutions. Right. So there is research that suggests that families that have a strong praise and criticism household, so where success and high achievement were pushed, but people in the family use criticism in order for you to achieve that. And so you were overly praised for what you did, but how you were motivated was through negative motivations. And so therefore you were never really sound in your accomplishment. You were doing it out of a pressure that wasn't positive and reinforcing. That could be a lot of A students suffer from this because there's not a consciousness of if your abilities were tied to yours or the people around you that kept pushing and pushing and pushing. The fear of your abilities is not really driven about are your accomplishments genuine, but there's a coupled fear of being found out that you are a fraud that accompanies imposter syndrome, which makes it different than simply, I don't know if I'm good at this one thing. It's you being in a position that you don't feel like you deserve. There's some identity crisis tied to it. And then you're afraid of being exposed for that identity crisis. And that is really, really an interesting component of this, because you feel that eventually when someone finds out, something's going to happen to you that's going to send you somewhere that you don't want to go based on people finding out that you really don't belong. But this also is apparent in people who are pioneering for their family, people who are doing things for the first time that the family has never really done. This is really on people who are writing books, starting businesses, finally getting a promotion, going to college, all these things that maybe your family has not experienced before. And so when you get into these spaces, you don't feel like you belong, but then also you've only been a benefactor of either your race, your orientation, your gender, and not really because you have the ability to actually do. This part is what really shows up very common in people of color, because we are such trailblazers for our families that have, due to the labor acknowledgements that Adora mentioned, have been in positions where we simply haven't had access to a lot of the opportunities that we have now in this generation. And so some of our individual family outcomes, we are outpacing those around us. And sometimes we feel like we don't often deserve it. It's a strange feeling. It is all intellectual. It is something that can be attributed to your environment. Some people have a predisposition for their wiring to really be predisposed to this kind of traits and behavior. But there's another segment of the population that I want to talk about that have suffered from abuse and have severe mental health issues in addition to anything that imposter syndrome can do. These solutions are not geared towards you. And I feel strongly about mental health solutions. They can be beneficial as part of an overall mental health plan. But we have people in community, to the very labor acknowledgement, who have suffered tremendous trauma, that these solutions won't begin to address the root of why certain things are happening in your life. And I always believe you got to get the help you need to be great. So that's my disclaimer. I'm not a mental health professional. I did a lot of research and studying on this, but also there's a need for professional help for intervention on some matters that go beyond your environment or how you view society and how society views you. So with that, I'm now going to transition to solutions, because that's what we came to talk about, and facing it head on. So I have 5 solutions that I use to help keep me guided in life. I'm sharing 3 of those that are really focused around overcoming the imposter syndrome. Here are the 3. Thanks for coming. See you next time. No, I'm going to spend time going over each of them, but there are really 3, and there's a lot of detail inside each one. So I want to get through it fairly quickly, because I want to leave time for conversation afterwards. The first has to do with alignment and authenticity. It's easy to feel fraudulent when you are not aligned in your life on your daily habits and actions. And so something that I've been able to grow as an idea from previous mentors and leaders and opportunities are really the 7 degrees of humanity. This is kind of my language, not theirs, but they have something similar. And these 7 degrees of humanity reflect about the different facets of your life as a person that become who you are and become a driver of what you do every day. So there's a spiritual component to who you are. There's an emotional, there's a mental, there's a physical, there's a communal component. So how you show up in community and what value does showing up in community or doing community work have for you. And then there's a familial, how do you show up in your family? How valuable is that? Because really what this does as a solution is creates a measurement tool for you. It creates a tool in which you can talk about your values, your goals, and your habits in a very transparent way. Because remember, through the imposter syndrome lens, you find yourself fraudulent, and sometimes you can distort your own abilities because you don't have an accurate way to transparently look at yourself. This is a tool that helps address that with alignment, because if we were to use one as an example, let's take spiritual. My value is to live a life connected to God and his people. My goals in life to achieve this value are these things. There needs to be accountability for what I'm actually doing now. And so I can have aspirations to do certain things inside this part of my humanity, but I need to have an accurate reflection of what I'm actually doing in that area of my life. And we like to say that this is measured in time. How many hours or how many times am I actually doing the thing? You think about financial, I have savings goals, but I need to take an accurate reflection of who I am so that I can be authentic to who I say I am. And I can be in alignment where I spend my time. Is it where my values are? Because if I'm not spending time where my values are and I show up in a place I feel inauthentic, then the feelings of being fraudulent are going to run fury over your mind. This tool is really around grounding you in who you say you are and holding yourself accountable, because no one else can really hold you accountable like you can. There are some very clear takeaways for this. Clarity on who you want to be. We say it, but when we look at our habits, is that really who we want to be? Or are we just saying it for other people's benefit? Or are we saying it for ourselves? It helps you eliminate the inconsistencies of things you do that don't align with who you say you want to be. And it challenges you to self-declare who you want to actually be. Not allow outside labels or desires to influence you to the point that you don't really understand what trajectory you have, which creates a lot of gray area for you to doubt who you are in these moments where imposter syndrome can really ramp up. It also allows you not to talk about yourself in a way that is ambiguous. I'm not that good at this, or I don't do this and I don't do that. It's like, no, let's look at what you're actually doing. And if you're not actually doing it, what are you willing to trade off? My Netflix and chill? Am I getting rid of my binging? Am I willing to do this differently? What am I really willing to do to be in better alignment with who I say I am and who I want to do? And lastly, this gives you a pathway forward to actually be who you say you are. Because when you operate from authenticity, you can connect with people differently. And we'll get to that connecting with people, but you can connect with people differently and transparently because you actually know deep down at like a measured, spending time with my family is a great value. So when I get home from work, there's certain things I have to do that maybe you don't do because my family comes before anything else. So we talked about the first one. We're going to go through these because I want to get into the conversation. The second is passion and purpose. And so this is about getting what's inside out. So a very simple process. That's what passion and purpose is all about. How do you develop what the thing is, my leadership, my restaurant, my recipe, my food, my nonprofit idea, my personal leadership skills at an organization, that promotion? How do you develop that idea? How do you test that out? And then how do you actually spread it to where you get people to buy in to what you're actually about or what you're planning to do? So the develop portion of this is about the alone time. How do I get it out of my head? The biggest driver that's tied with imposter syndrome, and I mentioned it with the disclaimer, is that anxiety is really a big counter component to this that really builds up when things fester inside and you're not able to get them out. This is a first step on getting things out of your head onto paper, onto a laptop, on a journal, on a vision board, whatever it is, to get it out. The second is you got to start prototyping the thing. You got to build it. You can't just keep it inside. And fear is not your future. Remember, you are facing it on head first. And so once you start getting these ideas out, you have a mindset and understanding that perfection is your enemy. Procrastination is not your friend, and failing isn't actually failing, because what you want to do is develop an idea that you can then go test. How do you test? You got to test it first closely with people, your people specifically. Your people need to see what you've been talking about and doing. They don't need to be, and I'll talk about what I mean by your people when we get to build your team. This isn't just your friends, because your friends can have mixed emotions and feelings about what you do. This is about your people need to see what you've been working on as your first sign of testing it. Tested generally, people need to know the people you know. So this becomes friends, family, your close associates in your network. And then you got to get out to test it more broadly. This process of developing and testing is I talk to people, I bring my ideas, I bring my thoughts, I get feedback. I build a system and process where continuous improvement is the goal, not perfection. And spreading, this is about purpose. I believe that, once we have ideas and we try to get stuff out, some people can gravitate towards, I'm doing this because I want prestige, I want to make money, or I want a sense of power in my community. This is about rooting your work in your purpose and doing it as part of your passion. Your passion are the positive emotions that get you over the temporary fear. This is about overcoming that temporary fear that comes with imposter syndrome to get you to action. So, imposter syndrome is also coupled with perfectionism. And so we know perfectionist tendencies. You have two options. You either procrastinate to give yourself an excuse for the reason why it's not that good. You give yourself an out. You wait to the last minute and then you do what you can, like, I didn't have such and such to do it the right way, but maybe next time. Or you get that perfectionist tendency where you spend so much time thinking that you never actually get to the doing part. And so this passion and purpose is really getting you out of that stuck mode. You're getting feedback before it's final. We know A students want to have that perfect. They want to have that A. They want to have that sense of accomplishment. Outside of school, the A student doesn't have that ability to get that. So how do we build a system in which we get towards the final, by building towards it. Not, I got to do it all first and then get it out the door. How do I create iteration and steps where I can build gradually over time? Next, avoid the all or nothing propositions. Use the habits that we just talked about in the first step to reinforce your success. And a lot of us have analytical brains that will overanalyze. Give your brains direction. When you overanalyze, it's great because you can be very exhaustive on the different ways in which you need to overcome or make something better. Put that to work and not keep it inside where it begins to fester. And remember, after school, nothing is ever final. Just start and focus on the continuous improvement. Now, lastly, this team sport thing, I want to spend just a few more minutes as part of the conversation. When I say build your team, I'm very specific about this. I believe you need to build your team across all 7 areas of your humanity. Some people are not going to be able to talk with you spiritually, but they'll be able to talk with you financially. The people who talk to you about your mental health may not be the same people who talk to you about your physical health. And you have to build a team around every part of your humanity, because you can be strong in some areas, but where you are weak, that's where the imposter syndrome will fester, and it will fester to the point where it affects where you are strong. You have to develop a holistic view of yourself. You can't just be good at work. You can't just be good at home. You can't just disappear in community. You can't just disappear financially. How am I present and how am I working and building in all these areas? So there are 4 key groups of people that I believe you need to have as a team in each area of your life. The first is someone to pour into you. You need someone. I'm not going to use the words mentors or advisors or confident. Like I don't use those. Those labels don't get to the point of, you need someone who can pour into you, someone who can affirm you and give you stuff without the need for reciprocity. It's not an exchange with them. They just simply want to give to you because they recognize your humanity and they recognize part of themselves in you. So they want to give you all that they have. They want to give you their power, their privilege, their access, but they don't need anything from you. That's a very important part, because when you get into reciprocal relationships, those begin to create doubt. Are they only helping me because I'm able to help them? And if I stop helping them, will they stop helping me? Avoid that. You need at least one person in all those areas of your life who can pour into you and not expect anything in return. I like to push for not to have your family, your partner, your spouse, or your friends be that person. Find someone outside that network, because you don't have to put them in positions where they can't be your friend, your partner, or your spouse. Secondly, you need a small group, people that can share their roller coaster with you and you with them in a very transparent, raw way. This usually shows up as a group text, but not the group text that only shares memes and highlights and talks about the show. You need a group text that also talks about personal development, that shares the real about what does it mean to struggle with certain things, and who are willing to leverage their power for each other. That's the group where you see reciprocity, where it's like, I'm with a group of people, they're going to give me some stuff, I'm going to give them some stuff, they're going to share their roller coaster, their ups and downs, and I'm going to share my roller coaster. I'm going to see from a peer group, regardless of age, we're at the same part of the journey that we're willing to share with each other. I also say that you don't want the group to be so serious that they can't send memes and advice within the same 5 minutes. You want to have balance in that group, that you don't just use them for work, but you use it for balancing who you are. Third, you need a big community, a group where you can just show up and not have to produce all the time. That is a challenge, because if you're a high achiever, you gravitate to groups that want you to do work. And then we wonder why we're burnt out. Where can you go and just be a member? Where can you go and just be in a chair and have other people around you doing great things and motivate you from a viewing standpoint? Where can you hear great ideas without you having to actually do all the work all the time? You need that community in different areas of your life. And you generally want to be in a community where the ideas are in alignment with where you're trying to head so that you can see how other people are navigating, but you aren't committed to having to show up every week for this thing. You're committed to show up when time allows, but you can be there and just be a fly on the wall. This is a group where being a small member is freedom. You can get lost in this group. You don't have to show up and be active. This can be a place of rest where you see good stuff happening and get your cup filled by seeing other people do great things. And last part of this is you need an additional one-to-one, but this is someone that you can pour into. There is so much benefit in ministry when you minister to other people, you teach other people, you mentor other people, and you realize you're really talking to yourself sometimes. You really realize, like, I'm healing old wounds because I'm pouring into someone else without a need for them to do anything else to me. I'm giving them what I never had. I'm giving them something that I wish was there for me. And at the same time, you get the benefit of seeing how far you have come. You get to see where they're at. They get to appreciate your knowledge and wisdom, but they also benefit in a very direct way. This becomes a positive reinforcing loop in our community and not something where you're just extracting value for yourself and your family. You're also pouring back into other people. This isn't about age. They could be older than you. They could be a certain topic, faith or finances where you really lean in and don't expect anything. And then you can develop an appreciation for the progress you made because you'll see the difference between you two and you'll be like, man, I remember when I was struggling with this. And that helps to eliminate like, no, I'm actually more well-rounded, more gifted, more talented, and more proven because I've been able to get through these relationships and these processes and these mindsets of alignment. So last thing, passion and purposes is I got to vent my doubts to somebody and I need them to have empathy, but not give me complacency. You need that kind of grandma, uncle voice of like, I hear you, and that's hard, but that ain't going to stop you. Hard doesn't stop us. Difficult doesn't stop us. That challenge or doubt doesn't stop us. Here's what you need to do. You need to hear others and their truth as well, because then you start to understand like, man, here's how I can help you navigate that. Here's how they can help you. It allows you to be a vessel. Showing up and being present and not active is such a gift that we seldom don't have because we try to find places that we can be of value. That often means we have to be at work all the time, everywhere we go, always on. Find a place where you can be the fly on the wall. Find a place where you can listen more than you can talk. That's a place of value that we often neglect because we just like, I don't have any value here. Why should I be here? Don't have no value. Just be there because eventually your time will come where people are going to need to be in a room where they don't add value, but they need to support whatever's going on that you have. And lastly, bringing others along reinforces what you know and how far you've come. These solutions, we went through them fairly fast for the purposes of getting to the conversation, me with you and you with each other, but they really are focused on eliminating these creeping areas in our life around align who I am and I'm more authentic because I'm doing what I said I'm going to do and I can measure it and no one can tell me any different. My passion and purpose are aligned with how I'm testing and bringing forward new ideas. I don't let things sit in my head. Others are giving me feedback. I'm having continuous improvement. I'm good with sharing where I'm at now. And lastly, you're building a team sport. This is a lifelong journey. You're not building a sprint to get through a 2-year program. Like, if we are healthy and wise and financially savvy, we're playing for the long game. This is life. This is multi-generational. We need to build a support network around us for a lot of reasons, but more importantly, it helps us to eliminate the doubt that creeps into our mind because we see our peers in their truth. We see our mentors or our guides, our advisors, our pastors in their truth. They're pouring into us. We're pouring into young people. We're pouring into older people. And we also are part of a community in ways that we just have to be there. I think this creates an environment where we can eliminate some very, very easy roadblocks through the kind of gifts that imposter syndrome puts on us without having to wait for other people to solve stuff for us. This is all built about creating better self-governance, better self-guidance. It's not about having other people come save us. So with that, I'm happy to dive into some conversation. I haven't seen the questions, so I hope they're coming. I hope we have much to talk about.
Yes, so if you have any questions, please put them in the chat, but I do have one that we're going to start off with. How can you as a leader support others on your team in breaking their imposter syndrome, or how do you do that?
So as a leader, I fortunately, as a founder, also get to create the value system that we operate on at our company, which is around people first. So we have those 7 kind of components of your humanity in our core values as at the organization. And I require them to go do the work, do that homework. Because if you say that you want to be a leader or you're an aspiring leader within an organization, there's certain things you have to do different than everyone else. You can't be and do stuff like everyone else and expect to be a leader or expect to be an expert in a certain area. But we also have to understand, like there is a trauma that's reinforcing about people of color, especially Black folks, working in white spaces. And we pick up on these microaggressions and they begin to silence us, or, our idea didn't come across because it was X, Y, and Z, or they didn't spend time really looking at our idea. And those things beat us up. There is what I like to say, like everyone needs healing from something. And imposter syndrome is one of the things that come out of us being beat up through this kind of climate that we're in. And so as a leader, you have to provide space for people to share insecurities, but you also have to create a space where insecurities or doubt are not an excuse in Black excellence. Like, cool, I acknowledge that that exists for you, and here's what we're prepared to do to make sure that you can overcome that, but that's not going to stop us. Like that's not in the way of us being great. To the point of people have had to overcome so much that we're not going to let our internal clocks stop us from being great.
Thank you. We have a question from Vanessa. Any insights as to finding one's purpose when you're always on? I feel like I've been on forever and operating from survival mode versus purpose, and I'm currently working on this. So what advice do you have on finding one's purpose?
I think it's a hard question. As a person of faith, I don't believe purpose is like just something generic. I think it's our kind of predestined work to do while we're here in community and with people. But I can tell you what you can't do is you can't find purpose if you're always on. Because being always on means you have to have certain habits that protect your rest, and sometimes you jeopardize your physical health or you jeopardize your mental health. I don't have a really good answer for that, right? Because some people spend their entire lives looking for purpose without actually starting work, or they're busy doing other stuff. I think your purpose comes to you when the time is right. You can be working, you can be open to suggestions, you can be open to listening, but I honestly think purpose comes to you when the time is right. I don't think everyone has a purpose at 18 and it starts then. Some people have to go through certain things and work in certain environments and accomplish certain things before their purpose light really turns on. And that's when you have to be ready and able. But I think that alignment piece gives you the freedom to acknowledge what doesn't align in the right now, because every year you can reevaluate what's important to you. Having a family with no children versus a family with children, like that's a big compass shift where your values should reflect the change that happened in your life. And so I think our consistent ability to really work on continuous improvement and finding for us that internal monitor of what we're doing and how it's aligned gives us the ability to receive purpose when it's ready.
Thank you. Thank you. Another question I have for you, you talked about maintaining your community your team. And I didn't mention this in the introduction, but D'Angelos is one of my really, really good friends for many years. And so I'm blessed to be a part of his community. And so I want you to respond to this question of how do you go about maintaining your team or your community?
So if I've done the first part of eliminate distractions and things that don't align, and I have focused on what's really important to me, you're going to spend time where it's important. We also need to recognize that everyone doesn't have the same priority of community. Of those 7 things, if I rank them on what's most important, sometimes for some people, community ain't going to be in the top 4 or top 3. And you can't have a transparent conversation or allow them to articulate that because you maybe haven't done that work for you. And so like I give people the example, like I grew up in a family that migrated here from Mississippi with 5 uncles and my mom and my grandma and grandpa. We were all we got. Like they made friends, but they didn't value creating or putting on or doing things in community. It was like, no, we're going to do it. We're going to do it at home because it's us versus them. It's all we got kind of mindset. And so I've had to learn how to prioritize community because it was a family come first after God kind of mindset. And everyone else is what it is. You have to acknowledge that everybody ain't going to value being in community the same way. And that allows you to value how you show up with that person or that activity or that group, because community for you may be top 3 because you didn't have the family dynamics that wanted you to be home, or your family was very passionate about showing up in community. And so you need to prioritize the people that you spend time with that reinforce your values. Like if you are looking for the long run, there are people that are going to be friends that ain't talked to every day. They're just not. And a real friend will see like, hey, I'm on my purpose, my mission, my values. I'm working towards something here. You also have to create boundaries for yourself. Everyone can't have access to you if you're going to maintain any health and balance in your life, because over access creates people's desires for your time that may not align with where you need to go. And shooting them a text message like, hey, been busy, would love to catch up, but it's going to be next month and it's the 1st of this month. You got to be comfortable sending that text back because your boundaries are like, I'm headed somewhere. My habits are in alignment with my goals and my values. That means that where I'm headed to is a place that I can't do everything with everyone for that. It doesn't mean that you're absent, but it does mean you have boundaries about when you can allocate that time to everyone. But those people that you're building on your team, they're in your value system. They're showing up in how you are doing work. You're going to be talking to them at the appropriate time that's needed for that situation.
Thank you. We have a question from Tara. In the beginning, when you introduce yourself, you talk about wearing a suit when appropriate, having your hair long, short, all of the things. So how do you balance authenticity with code switching for safety? Not everyone in space is ready for my blackety black energy. That's from Tara.
I used to acknowledge that, right? Like, yeah, people got to do that. Most people working from home right now, man. And at some point, there's privilege in what I'm saying. At some point, we have to own who we are. Because if we keep putting it on the shelf, it's going to go stale and we're going to lose ourselves. Not like, oh, who I used to be, or I can only be this person at home. Like we often spend more time with work people than we do at home with family, with our children, with our loved ones and community. We have to find a way that our authenticity, and some other people can talk about it because that's a topic that gets into the weeds of corporate and nonprofit dynamics that I'm not willing to play. I will show up we have the mindset at our organization that you address business confident. If you are confident enough to conduct business in what you wear it. but you have to be able to live with the consequences of your attire. So if I wear a Nike jumpsuit to a banker meeting and they write me off, I got to live with that. But that's not a bad thing. I still was able to be who I am. There's also a reality that people, once you start matriculating through the system, there's a lot of people in positions of leadership who dress down all the time. There is no dress up for them. And they own that authenticity by being prepared in other areas of their life where there's no questioning, are they competent or are they serious about the work? They've answered those questions, and now they have the privilege of, I can wear what I wear, I can talk how I need to talk to get things done, and I am appropriate for the situation because I've proven the work, right? That's a deep rabbit hole that I'm not going to profess to be an expert, but at some point we can't let our true self go stale, putting it on the shelf for other systems and people.
Thank you. My next question is asking for your advice for being vulnerable with your direct supervisor or team lead to let them know that you're working on breaking your imposter syndrome without undermining your credibility or your authority. Any advice for that?
Yes. So there's two trains of thought. One is, why do they need to know? Are they a part of your team that knows the real about you? That's one train of thought, is like, why do they need to know? If you feel like they need to know, what help are you anticipating? What reaction are you anticipating them to do when they do know? Are you expecting them to make it easier for you? Are you expecting them to have more sympathy and say, now, I understand. You try again next week. Like, what we have to be, I would say, precise on what we actually expect them to do with that information. And answer to ourselves, what do we need them to do? What feeling are we looking to get from them that's going to validate my position? And that's part of the camp of, they don't need to know. Why do they need to know? I'm doing this work on me personally. So that's one train of thought. Another train of thought, and there's a spectrum, but this is the other side of it, is like, I'm letting these folks know that I may have changes that are coming because I'm going through these breakthrough moments and I'm overcoming my imposter syndrome. And so I may be becoming more direct because I don't have to sugarcoat it no more, because I don't feel like I need to sugarcoat no more. Or I need to let my supervisor know, like, hey, I'm coming for this new position that's opened up. I'm tired of living, beneath where I think I need to be. Like, that's another train of thought. Again, I would just simply ask, like, why are you sharing it? Are you protecting them for the changes? Or are you giving them a heads up that things are going to be different now? Or I'm coming for something that I know should be for me, but I haven't been pursuing because of whatever. You have to gauge, are you letting them into your team to know that information? Why? And can you trust them with it? And if you cannot trust them with it, for sure, don't ever give it up.
I just want to put a last call for questions. That was the last question I had. But if there are no other questions, I'm going to take a little pause, a quick pause.
Are there any 8-man corners, any comments, any thoughts?
Anything. You might want to come off mute because you might not have time to type it quickly in the chat. Anything.
This is Nyla Golden, and I just want to say thank you for I like the term business confident. So thank you for putting that out there. That's a reminder to me.
Thank you, Nyla. And we have a question in the chat. And this is from David. So I'm gonna get to the actual question. How do you develop courage to remain outside of ourselves? So some context around that is profound, clear, and tactical tools. Thank you. My purpose starts with my impact on others, not what impacts me. It's more about what I give than what I receive. Karma always finds me and replenishes my spirit energy. How do we develop the courage to remain outside of ourselves?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure I understand the question fully. I would challenge the thought that we remain outside of ourselves. I think when we, in this context, attack or really push back against imposter syndrome, we're really centering ourselves within ourselves about who we really are and taking accountability for how good we really are, taking the benefits of how good we really are and being transparent. The idea that, there's impact on others and I rely on something else to replenish me, I think is dangerous. I don't adhere to that. I think we have to take accountability for how we feel about us. And so I don't know if I fully understand the question, but I would say to you that courage is only present when there's fear. Once the fear is gone, you're not operating with courage anymore. Courage is overcoming fear. And so is there a fear of operating outside yourself that courage needs to be present? Or is it simply now just motivation, which is a different kind of energy and reaction to what's around you?
Thank you. David, I don't know if you want to expand on your question real quick.
Well, the whole point I was getting at is that you talked about having a team where you can unpack and wrestle with some of the challenges you're facing. My question is, how do you sustain that team and encourage them to remain part of your team as you process daily challenges?
Absolutely. Okay, I got you. So you giving to someone on that one-to-one creates the positive outlet from you. You're not just being extractive. You're also receiving on the one-to-one. But that small group and community, the small group and big community, the idea that those people change should be freeing because you shouldn't be the same, right? So as you are maturing in different areas, what that person has to give, they become a friend now, right? You're in touch when you need to, but you continue to have different things or people or groups that emerge as you matriculate through your own life, right? I think that should be freedom for us instead of how do I keep them there? It's no, someone else is going to be there when I have different challenges in different areas. And I don't need to rely on them from now till the end. Like there may just be a one-to-one where I need something in my physical health that's tied to how I eat. And I may develop a relationship where someone's pouring into me and in only 4 months, because once I figure it out, they're like, cool, I don't need to pour no more in you, bro. I got a whole bunch of other people that need what I got and I'm willing to give. Now they're just a friend and community with you that you can reinforce that relationship over time. But we don't have to think about them being captive to us. We need to think about them being there for their purpose, which only may be for a few months to a couple of years, or some people are there for lifetimes.
Thanks for expanding on that for us, DeAngelos and David. And then I have, I think this might be our last question, but how do you set firm boundaries when you're healing from things as a leader, advocate, or a person in community?
Yep. So time is our greatest measurement tool because we can't get that back. And so I would suggest that we start with time boundaries. Not that you can or cannot go to something, or can or cannot do something, or can or cannot take on another task. The reason why I started with the alignment part first is that you set the priorities for your 24 hours. Now, if you're within an 8-hour workday and you're dealing with work stuff, we'll talk about that second. But like in my 24 hours, I get to drive the bus for what's important to me. And if I don't have the time, that's the first boundary that I set is, hey, I love to, but my time is with my kids this afternoon. We're going to the game. I love to. It would be so fun if I could join you. But I'm prioritizing a value that's high on my list, which is family. So me and the kids are going to the Timberwolves game. That's first as a time boundary. The second is a frequency boundary, which is I can hang out with y'all once a month, But if you're not in my values or where I'm headed, if I spend more time than that with you on a monthly basis, you become a distraction for where I'm headed to. And you have to then, once you set the time boundaries, you give yourself confidence, set frequency, like, cool, I get with y'all this month for brunch, but next month, like, I need that Saturday back. I can't do that. So then I'll talk about work, and I know we got to wrap up. The work boundaries have become very blurred because of work from home. And a lot of us are working not full time, but we're working for longer periods of time. We're working 10 hours a day, but we're not working the whole 10 hours, right? And so we're still keeping it on our minds, right? And so you have to have a conversation as a leader within an organization on what's really your priorities, not from like the 7 parts of humanity, but like, what are you really charged with as a leader? That's your responsibility. And what are you charged with that's helping other people accomplish? Because as a leader, we often find our times doing other people's work because we're good at it and they need our support. When we begin to carry other people's water and it's not reciprocal in that kind of small group relationship with a peer at work, it becomes abusive. Because you get so good at something, it's easy to give it to you because it takes you 10 minutes, but it takes me 2 hours. Well, the reality is those 10 minutes are really hard because my brain has to switch from what I'm supposed to be doing to focus on what I'm helping you with. All right. So it may only take 10 minutes, but it distracts what I need to do for 4 hours. And I got to reset that 4-hour clock. So I think we have to have some inventory on that. Personally, old fashioned, I got to look at the job description. I know other duties as assigned, but I got to prioritize the main thing. And if the main thing becomes a minor thing, then we become replaceable. So it's a lot to dive into. I so appreciate the questions. I really love this conversation and hope that folks can have this within their small group communities about what this information means for you and how you can build with people versus just showing up and hanging out.
Thank you. Thank you so much, D'Angelo. We have really appreciated your words today and really the push to not only seek purpose, but to build alignment as we overcome imposter syndrome. So I want to thank everyone for attending today. And please share any feedback with us via the survey that was in the chat. Brittany put a link in the chat, so please look out for that. Look out for the upcoming events that are also in the chat. And this is also Giving Month. So please look at think about giving early for Give to the Max. Thank you again for your support, and we look forward to seeing you in 2023. Have a great day.